got an opportunity to, on one of Dawgface's lives that he was doing from his YouTube streets, he had a special guest that he wasn't anticipating. And that ended up being the homie, Anton Daniels from the Anton Daniels show. He got a few shows over there. And it appears Dawgface and his panel was pleasantly surprised. But I think they was giving Anton the business in some shows leading up to Anton's pop-up appearance, I guess I could state. It appeared Dawgface was pleasantly surprised. So they got into the conversation and started digging in about Black culture. I done had some issues with Anton Daniels, but not issues like it was a problem. Just difference of opinion in some of his material. And so, in which I've done videos in response to some of it. But all in having a conversation. Nothing personal, of course. You know. But I thought this would be a good video to review because what it's covering and what I think this could be the buttress of. It's a conversation about the culture, and that's important. My question is Black culture broken or misunderstood? Now, Anton said it's about accountability. Dawgface Calderone pushed back. Tonight, we break down the clash, what was missed, and the history behind it. And as always, my good people, let's have a conversation. Anton comes in sharp. He says Black culture has too much dysfunction, broken families, poor choices, bad habits. He also argued these are self-inflicted wounds, not systematic oppression. Anton's not totally wrong. He's giving us a mirror, but he's only looking at post-1960s moments. That era, the issues Anton is describing did not exist in the same way. So the mirror is real, but it's cropped. And this is where I believe the historical roots of the conversation needs to be alluded to. This is where Thomas Sowell helps us out in Black Rednecks and White Liberals. Sowell points out what Anton calls ghetto culture actually came from Southern white redneck culture, which itself came out of British traditions. It means what Anton is attacking isn't uniquely Black at all. It's a cultural transfer that only took root in the modern era. Anton's critique sounds timeless, but Sowell shows it's not. It's relatively new. Now, I would like to look at Dawgface's position and where I felt Dawgface was right and where he was strongest at. And here's where Dawgface deserves credit. He pushed back hard against Anton's tone. He said, you're ignoring the system. And he's right. Redlining, policing, incarceration, economic exclusion. All of these shaped Black neighborhoods after the 60s. Culture doesn't form in a vacuum. And Dawgface kept pointing us back to that truth. But just as I pointed Anton's strong points and where I felt his argument fell short, I have to be consistent and do the same thing with Dawgface. I feel Dawgface points fell short in certain areas. Dawgface missed some things as well. He called Anton harsh, but he didn't bring receipts. And we know in our cultures, you have to have the receipts. He didn't have historical facts or the Sowell type analyst to push back effectively. Imagine, just for a moment, if he had said to Anton, the culture you're describing didn't even exist before the 60s. And that it's not Black essence, it's historical disruption. That's the missing firepower. If Dawgface brought in sharper historians or debate-driven thinkers, he could have flipped the whole debate. Now let's take a look at the bigger picture, not sides. because at the end of the day, both of these brothers were having a conversation. I just felt the conversation could have been much more in depth, in which I'll touch on in a moment. So what's the bigger picture? It's not a choice between Anton's mirror or Dawgface's context. The truth is both are necessary. Yes, accountability matters, and it matters a lot. Yes, the system matters as well. But if you only talk about one, you miss the story. Anton sharpens the mirror. Dawgface provides the context. But the synthesis, that's what's missing. Now, how do we go about repairing the damage? The real conversation, within my opinion, isn't whether Black culture is broken. The real conversation is how do we repair what was broken by design? How do we build on Black resilience, creativity, and yes, that $200 trillion spending power that you always hear me talking about over and over and over again and being redundant about it, because that is important. Also, the global cultural influence that already exists. That's the next debate. So let me ask you this. Whose side are you on? Anton's mirror or Dawgface's context? Or is it time for both to be put together? That just gives you something to think about. Now, in closing, I appreciate the fact as Anton showed up and he confronted Dawgface in his panel about some of the things that they were stating. And I can't recall the name of the sister that was up there that was calling Anton out of his name. And she reversed her position while standing strong and firm on what she stated concerning her opinions about some of his views. Anton was gracious and said, he's been called some of everything, which he has. I've never called him nothing crazy, but I mean, I've challenged him on the points. And they went on to have a productive conversation. And that's the most important thing, people, conversations. And even when I went at Anton on some of his views, I always stated, and I still state, I don't like to go at homies. And he stated something similar. You're from Detroit, you're going to get respect from me because in my mind, even when I was moving around the industry, Detroit dudes always pretty much moved a certain way and respected each other, even in disagreements. And that's something that I always appreciated, being a dude from the street anyway. And I like the fact that Anton told Dawgface, I ain't hard to find, but not in an aggressive way. You could have reached out, brother. We could talk. That's what I love. Now, here's the thing about Dawgface. Dawgface has his YouTube streets, and there's their market for that. But when evaluating all the guys up there, and I got a lot of respect for Juice, because Juice an old head. He done seen a lot. He got that 100-yard stare, as they say, from Full Metal Jacket. And that has to be respected. And but they're not orators. Dawgface can talk. And I know he get into his BA N words and all that, but that's part of what he does. He can be colorful. And I mean, I wouldn't talk like that, but sometimes it's necessary. Some of the people he have, you kind of gotta rough them off some. So I get it. But he knows how to speak eloquently. But I felt in that position there, if he had a panel that could express their points and be more clear, and that's one of Anton's strengths. He's very clear and decisive when he speaks. And he paints a picture. He paints a picture, and you have to be able to, challenge that or be as consistent as he is in your deliverance. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity. And I think just watching what Anton does, this appears like an olive branch to a bigger conversation. And this is a conversation that needs to be had. And I watched Anton because I watched a lot of his stuff for a period of time. And I seen him pivoting over to the right. It appears because he went on Fox News and stuff like that. I mean, that's a hell of an accomplishment. Even my buddy over there that I always get into it with Karate J, as my audience know, but that's Jay Flores of the Flores twins, the ones that went and testified against Chapo. We then went back and forth a number of times, and we didn't get at it. But within getting at it, there's still a respect, and that's important. And as Anton started out talking about a conversation, looking at what happened with Charlie Kirk, we're getting to the point where we don't have conversations. We can agree to disagree. There's nothing wrong with that. But let's have the conversation. And I enjoyed the conversation that these men had. And Dawgface has done some reviews of the conversation they did have, but they had a conversation. And I'm hoping that this is just the first of many more that can come, because there needs to be a conversation, because our community, the community, is more conservative than most think, and that's something that needs to be entertained. We need to have a conversation. We need to have a conversation while identifying, as I've stated before in the last video I did, about God has given every group of individual of every race some of those special souls. Some of those special souls that know how to be special in their specialing, if you know what I mean. And there's no exception. Every family has some of those special souls that you try to hide or put away when company comes. That's just how it goes. And Thomas Sowell, in his Black Rednecks and White Liberals, points to that. And he called, and it's accurate, Black rednecks, because that's what we have. We have a bunch of Black rednecks, but they are not the culture. Just like the YT people have their actual rednecks and crackers. No race speech, but what they're historically identified with, as Thomas Sowell points out in his Rednecks and White Liberals, those names came from England. And as I stated, I believe the distinction of hillbilly probably was created between over there and maybe on the way here. I don't know. But it's a learned culture that we have, and that needs to be spoken to. So like I say, I hope this conversation can continue to happen. I do see that Dawgface, once he just got through going through his, I guess, suspension, or when he was taken off the air, whatever, he has pivoted somewhat. And I do see an opening there for him, to start having more intellectual conversations. And those intellectual conversations would take a different type of character to bring on some of his panels to start having some of these conversations. And the conversation that there has to be a historical context. And to place context to this, Charleston White just did something not too long. And he started talking about, and this is in the last video I did not too long ago, talking about how he has tricked the YT people and gave his opinion on how to play on the Republican side, liberal side, so on and so forth. But one thing he stated, with playing on the Republican side, the conservative side, you must know history. You cannot win a conversation, if that's the goal, with Anton Daniels without knowing history. You must know history to be able to push back on some of the things that he's stating. Not in argument, not in trying to win, or it's about the conversation. Because the conversation, more importantly, is about the preservation and capitalizing on the power, spending power that we have as a race, and the cultural influence that we have around the world that's not being recognized. And I feel it's not being recognized because there's certain entities that don't want us to recognize on it, where they can continue to cash in and capitalize off of it. But as always, my good people, I enjoyed the conversation that these two gentlemen had. I'm hoping there will be more in the future that will be more constructive for us as a people, and for us to have these conversations that the rest of our people can listen to, so we can continue to delineate ourselves even from the black rednecks, but classify them as they are with no disrespect to them, and knowing that there has to be a little more care because God hasn't taxed and charged us all with being responsible, because we are our brother's keeper. But stop allowing people to equate us with a small group that is represented equally in every race and in every family. So this your man, trying to fuck with you. Hope you continue to fuck with me. Get down in the comments. Let me know if you agree with Anton's mirror or Dawgface's context. I'm on the side of these two need to be put together, because they're two pieces of a puzzle that go together. They're not apart. Deuces.